All right, so let's dive into something that's both timely and, let's face it, a little bit edgy urban prepping.
You sure?
You know, get it ready for anything in that concrete jungle we call home. We've got a fascinating source to unpack today.
Okay.
A series of guides by the Portuguese Prepper. And get this, he's all about applying the art of war
Okay.
to modern-day city survival.
Yeah, it's a pretty fascinating approach. Sun Tzu's principles, written centuries ago, for the battlefield,
Right.
have a surprising amount of wisdom to offer for those preparing for potential disruptions in a 2025 urban environment.
Yeah, that's what caught my eye, too.
Hmm.
Ancient strategy meets modern-day city survival. What's not to love? Today, we're going beyond the basics. Think of this as a deep dive into the strategic mindset. You need to not just survive, but to truly thrive when the unexpected hits.
And like any good strategist, we start with Sun Tzu's fundamental principle: know yourself and know your enemy. This is where the Portuguese prepper really gets practical.
Okay, so first up, self-assessment time. But I'm guessing this goes deeper than just knowing your blood type and emergency contacts.
Definitely. He pushes for a more holistic approach. Sure, you need a go bag,
Right.
but how far could you realistically walk carrying a 30-pound pack? Could you carry a loved one to safety? Have you actually, tested your limits?
That's a good point. It's easy to overestimate your physical strength in a theoretical scenario. But there's more to knowing yourself than just the physical, right?
Absolutely. The Portuguese prepper emphasizes mental and emotional preparedness as well. He suggests specific techniques like controlled breathing exercises to manage stress during a crisis. He also encourages readers to think about how fear and anxiety might influence their decisions and even practice making those tough calls under pressure.
That's something I hadn't really considered before. It's one thing to have a plan. It's another to be able to execute it when your heart is racing and the world feels like it's falling apart.
Exactly. He argues that prepping your mind is just as important as prepping your supplies.
Okay, so we've sized ourselves up, warts and all. Now, what about that second part of Sun Tzu's advice? Know your enemy. Who or what exactly are we talking about here?
Well, in this case, the Portuguese prepper suggests visualizing your city as the battlefield. He challenges readers to map out its vulnerabilities. For example, are there any single points of failure for your water supply? How easily could your neighborhood be cut off from the rest of the city? He even talks about potential crime hotspots, areas to avoid in a crisis.
So we're literally talking about looking at Google Maps. But instead of finding the best pizza place, we're pinpointing escape routes, safe zones, and potential danger areas.
Precisely. He argues that familiarizing yourself with your city's layout, infrastructure, and even its social dynamics is crucial for making informed decisions in a crisis.
This is where the Portuguese prepper starts to bring in some art of war tactics. For example, he talks about strategic positioning, using the urban environment to your advantage, just like a military commander would.
He's a big advocate of what he calls the vertical advantage.
Okay.
Think high-rise buildings. Okay.
While they have limitations, like elevators and limited escape routes, they offer a different perspective on potential threats and evacuation options.
So instead of just hunkering down in my basement, I should be thinking about how to turn my 10th floor apartment into a secure, strategic position.
Exactly. He has some creative, almost like MacGyver-like suggestions for reinforcing doors, using everyday furniture, or setting up escape routes using rope techniques on balconies.
Okay, that's pretty cool. But it's not all about staying put, right? What about when you need to bug out, get out of Dodge? How does the Portuguese prepper apply Sun Tzu to that?
He talks about identifying potential bottlenecks, those choke points in the city that could become death traps during a mass evacuation.
Right.
Think bridges, tunnels, major highways, anything that could easily get jammed up with panicked people.
So while everyone else is stuck in gridlock, I should be zipping through those back alleys and side streets I've already scouted out. That's the idea. He emphasizes the importance of having multiple escape routes planned and knowing those less traveled paths through your city.
It's starting to make sense. Using your knowledge of the urban environment to literally outmaneuver potential chaos. It's like knowing the secret shortcuts in a video game.
And this leads into another key principle from Sun Tzu, that the Portuguese prepper adapts for urban survival, being like water.
Okay, I'm intrigued. So how do I become like water in a city that's mostly concrete and steel?
It's about adaptability. Cities are constantly changing. What's a safe neighborhood today could become dangerous tomorrow. He stresses that having one rigid plan isn't enough. You need to be able to improvise, adjust, and flow around obstacles as they arise.
So if the main bridge is out, I need to have a plan B, C, and maybe even D ready to go.
Precisely. He emphasizes developing a flexible mindset, one that can handle unexpected challenges and make quick decisions under pressure. And this goes beyond just physical adaptability.
Wait, there's more to being like water than just being able to squeeze through a narrow window if I have to.
Right. The Portuguese Prepper highlights the importance of mental and emotional flexibility as well.
So like being able to switch from fight to flight mode depending on the situation.
That's part of it. He talks about the importance of emotional regulation, not letting fear or panic cloud your judgment. He even suggests practicing mindfulness techniques to stay grounded and focused in chaotic situations.
That's interesting. I guess it's easy to forget that your mind could be your greatest asset or your biggest liability in a crisis.
Exactly. And he emphasizes the importance of continuously learning new skills. In an urban environment, resourcefulness is key.
So we're talking about practical skills like first aid, right?
Yeah.
Everyone should have a basic first aid kit, but what about knowing how to treat more serious injuries if medical help isn't available?
He goes beyond the basics. He talks about the importance of understanding how to manage wounds, stop bleeding, and even perform CPR if necessary. He also stresses the importance of self-defense, but not in the way you might think.
Wait, so he's not advocating for turning every urban prepper into a martial arts expert.
Not exactly. While he acknowledges the value of self-defense skills, he emphasizes the importance of situational awareness, de-escalation techniques, and even how to move safely through a crowd.
So it's more about avoiding a fight than winning one.
Exactly. He argues that in a chaotic urban environment, the best way to stay safe is to avoid dangerous situations altogether.
That's pretty practical advice, honestly. But it makes you think, what other skills would be valuable in an urban survival scenario?
He encourages readers to think beyond the obvious. Basic mechanics, carpentry, even knowing how to cook without electricity. These could be bartering chips in a crisis.
It's like becoming the ultimate urban MacGyver. Being able to fix things, build things, and create solutions using whatever's at hand.
That's the spirit. He argues that the more versatile and resourceful you are, the more valuable you become to your community, especially when things go sideways.
Okay, but all this prep talk, it almost sounds like we're getting ready to raid a medieval castle. How does this actually apply to life in a modern city?
That's where the Portuguese Prepper gets really interesting. He introduces this concept of operational security, or OPS.
OPSC, that sounds intense. Is this like something spies use?
It is a term borrowed from the military and intelligence communities, but he applies it to everyday urban preparedness. The basic idea is that your preps, your plans, your knowledge, they could make you a target in a crisis.
Wait, so I'm stockpiling all this food and water, learning all these skills, and I could end up being the one getting raided.
It's a harsh reality he wants readers to consider. He suggests practical OPSEC measures. For example, disguising your supplies, maybe using decoys or false storage locations to throw people off the scent.
Okay, so I'm creating a secret stash of ramen noodles and water bottles, and I'm putting a few empty cans of beans out in the open to make it look like that's all I've got.
That's one tactic he suggests. He also talks about the power of disinformation, appearing less prepared than you are to deter potential threats.
That's a bit mind-bending. It's like playing a game of urban poker, making people think you have a weak hand when you've actually got a royal flush.
It's a subtle approach, but he argues that in an urban environment where information is power, sometimes the best defense is a good offense.
So it's not just about protecting your physical resources, it's about protecting your knowledge and your reputation as well.
Exactly. He emphasizes the importance of being discreet, both online and in person. Don't boast about your preps, don't reveal too much information, and be mindful of who you trust.
This is all getting very cloak and dagger. I'm starting to think the Portuguese prepper has watched a few too many spy movies.
He certainly brings a unique perspective to urban prepping.
Okay, so we've covered a lot of ground here. Mental and physical preparedness, understanding our city, strategic positioning, even a little bit of espionage. What's next?
Well, the Portuguese prepper considers logistics the backbone of urban survival. And that leads us to the practicalities of stockpiling, resource management, and the importance of community in a crisis. But I think that deserves its own deep dive.
You're right. We've only just scratched the surface of the Portuguese prepper's strategic approach to urban survival. Okay, so back to the Portuguese prepper. And this time we're tackling logistics. I'm guessing we're talking about more than just having a pantry full of canned goods and bottled water.
Yeah, you're right. He definitely takes it a step further. He argues that in an urban environment, resource management goes beyond just stockpiling. It's about understanding the flow of goods and services in your city and identifying potential weak points.
So if a major supply chain disruption hits, like a massive trucking strike or a port shutdown, I should already know which local shops or markets might still have access to essential goods.
Exactly. He encourages readers to think about alternative sources for food, water, and other necessities. For example, he dedicates a whole chapter to urban foraging, identifying edible plants that grow wild in your city.
Urban foraging. That sounds a bit like a hipster hobby. Is that really practical for survival?
Well, the Portuguese prepper argues that it could be a vital skill in a prolonged crisis. Knowing which plants are safe to eat, where to find them, and how to prepare them could provide a valuable source of nutrition when grocery store shelves are empty.
Okay, I'm starting to see how this all ties together. It's not just about having a bunker full of supplies. It's about understanding how to leverage the resources that are already available in your environment.
Precisely. And he doesn't stop there. He also talks about the importance of community barter networks.
Bartering, like trading my prized collection of vintage comic books for a bag of potatoes.
Well, hopefully it wouldn't come to that. But he makes a valid point. In a crisis, traditional currency might become worthless. What becomes valuable are skills, services, and essential goods that people need.
So if I'm a skilled mechanic, I could barter my services for food, medical supplies, or whatever else my community needs.
Exactly. He encourages readers to take inventory of their own skills and resources and to think about how they could be valuable in a barter system.
It's like creating a hyperlocal post-apocalyptic economy, right? Except, hopefully, it's not quite that dramatic.
He certainly paints a vivid picture. But the underlying message is clear. Community is crucial for urban survival.
Okay, so let's dive into that. He keeps mentioning Sun Tzu's emphasis on strong alliances. But how do we actually build that sense of community in a city where everyone seems so isolated?
Well, the Portuguese prepper suggests starting small. Get to know your neighbors. Identify those who share similar values, and start building those relationships before a crisis hits.
So it's about more than just knowing their names and what kind of dog they have. It's about building trust, sharing resources, and maybe even practicing some of those survival skills together.
Exactly. He suggests forming or joining local prepping groups, organizing neighborhood watch programs, or even just setting up regular potlucks where people can share skills and knowledge.
It's like creating a micro-community within the larger urban landscape, a network of people you can rely on when things get tough.
He believes that's essential for long-term resilience. He argues that a strong community can pool resources, share information, and provide support during a crisis, making everyone more likely to not just survive, but to thrive.
That makes sense. There's strength in numbers, right?
Yeah.
But what about when staying put is no longer an option? The Portuguese prepper talks about Sun Tzu's principles of mobility and intelligence. How does that play out in an urban evacuation?
He stresses having multiple evacuation plans, each with designated meeting points and practice drills. Imagine a scenario. A fire breaks out in your apartment building. You need to evacuate immediately. Do you have a predetermined meeting point with your family? Do you have a backup plan if that location is inaccessible?
Okay, that's a pretty intense scenario. I guess it's easy to overlook those details when you're just thinking about packing a bug-out bag.
He emphasizes that planning for these scenarios is crucial. He also highlights the importance of understanding your city's transportation systems. Could you navigate the subway system without power? Do you know alternate routes if the main roads are blocked?
So we're back to knowing those secret shortcuts and back alleys that only locals know about.
Precisely. He argues that understanding how to move through your city, both on foot and using various modes of transportation, is a vital skill. And then there's the intelligence gathering aspect.
Intelligence gathering. Are we talking about becoming urban spies now?
Not quite, but he does emphasize the importance of staying informed. In a crisis, accurate and timely information can be a lifesaver. He suggests monitoring local news, social media, and even police scanner apps to stay ahead of potential threats.
So it's about knowing what's happening in your city, even if it's not directly impacting you at that moment.
Exactly. He argues that being aware of developing situations allows you to make informed decisions about your own safety and the safety of your loved ones.
Okay, that makes sense. But with all this talk about evacuation and potential threats, it's easy to get caught up in the doom and gloom side of prepping. How does the Portuguese prepper keep things from getting too bleak?
He emphasizes that prepping is not about living in fear. It's about taking control of your destiny, empowering yourself with knowledge and skills, and building a more resilient and fulfilling life.
So it's not about hiding in a bunker waiting for the world to end. It's about being prepared for whatever challenges come your way, whether it's a natural disaster, an economic downturn, or even just a personal setback.
Exactly. He believes that prepping is a journey of personal growth, a way to develop self-reliance, resourcefulness, and a deeper connection with your community.
That's a refreshing perspective. It's not just about survival, it's about thriving, about living a more intentional and empowered life.
And he argues that this mindset can benefit you in all aspects of your life, not just in a crisis.
Okay, so it's not just about stockpiling beans and bullets. It's about building a more resilient and fulfilling life. But there's still this underlying assumption that something bad is going to happen, right?
He acknowledges that the future is uncertain, but he argues that preparedness is not about predicting the future. It's about equipping yourself to handle whatever comes your way.
So instead of worrying about things that are outside of my control, I should focus on developing the skills and resources that will help me navigate those challenges when they arise.
Precisely. He encourages readers to embrace the uncertainty, to see it not as a threat, but as an opportunity for growth and adaptation.
That's a powerful message. And I think it speaks to the heart of what prepping is really about. It's not about being afraid of the future. It's about being empowered to face it.
Exactly. And it's about recognizing that while we may not be able to control everything that happens to us, we can control how we respond. And it's about recognizing that while we may not be able to control everything that happens to us, we can control how we respond.
And that's where the true power of the Portuguese prepper's approach lies. It's not just about surviving. It's about thriving, about using those challenges to become more resilient, more resourceful, and more connected to the people around us.
And he believes that this mindset can ultimately lead to a more fulfilling and meaningful life.
Now, as we delve deeper into the Portuguese prepper's insights, I want to shift our focus to a concept that he calls the art of invisibility. It's a fascinating blend of OPSE situational awareness and psychological tactics designed to help you navigate the urban landscape with minimal footprint.
Yeah, it's about moving through the city like a ghost, blending and avoiding attention and leaving no trace. It's about becoming a master of anonymity in a world that's increasingly obsessed with surveillance and data collection.
So it's not just about physical stealth, it's about digital stealth as well.
Absolutely. In the digital age, our movements, our communications, and even our thoughts are constantly being tracked and recorded. The art of the invisible is about minimizing your digital footprint, making it harder for those systems to monitor your activities.
So we're talking about things like using privacy-focused browsers, encrypting your communications, and being mindful of what you share online.
Exactly. It's about taking proactive steps to protect your privacy and your data and to make it more difficult for algorithms and corporations to profile you and predict your behavior.
And it's about being aware of surveillance cameras, facial recognition software, and other technologies that are increasingly being used in urban environments.
Precisely, it's about understanding how these technologies work, how they can be used to track your movements, and how to minimize your exposure to them.
So it's about being a bit of a digital ninja, moving through the cyber landscape with stealth and agility.
Precisely, and it's a skill set that's becoming increasingly valuable in a world where privacy is becoming an increasingly scarce commodity.
But the art of the invisible isn't just about technology. It's also about psychology. It's about understanding how people perceive you, how to blend in with a crowd, and how to avoid attracting unwanted attention.
It's about mastering the art of nonverbal communication, using body language, eye contact, and even your gait to project an aura of ordinariness.
So we're talking about things like walking with confidence but not arrogance, making eye contact but not staring, dressing in a way that's neither flashy nor slovenly.
Exactly. It's about finding that sweet spot where you're neither invisible nor conspicuous. It's about becoming a master of subtle cues and signals that allow you to navigate the urban landscape with minimal friction.
It's a fascinating concept, and it speaks to the broader theme of adaptability that runs throughout the Portuguese prepper's work. It's about being able to adjust your behavior, your appearance, and your communication style to fit the situation.
And it's a skill set that's valuable not just in a crisis, but in everyday life. Being able to read social cues, understand unspoken rules, and adapt to different environments can make you more effective in your personal and professional interactions.
It's about becoming a social chameleon, blending in seamlessly with different groups and situations.
Precisely. And it's a skill that can be learned and practiced just like any other.
You know, thinking about the art of the invisible, it reminds me of something the Portuguese prepper emphasizes throughout his guides, the importance of information. It's not just about gathering intel, but also about controlling the information you're putting out there.
He's very clear on that point. In an urban environment, information is a powerful tool both for good and bad, knowing how to use it strategically is crucial for both your safety and your success.
So it's not just about having a bug-out bag and knowing how to build a fire. It's about understanding the flow of information in your city, knowing where to get reliable news, and even how to use social media to your advantage.
He actually dedicates a whole chapter to urban information warfare. He argues that in a crisis, rumors and misinformation can spread like wildfire, causing panic and chaos. Being able to discern truth from fiction and knowing how to protect yourself from disinformation campaigns becomes vital.
It's almost like developing a BS detector for the digital age,
Yeah.
right? Being able to critically evaluate information, check sources, and not just blindly believe everything you see online.
Precisely. He provides specific techniques for verifying information, identifying fake news, and even using online platforms to gather intel and connect with others.
So it's not just about avoiding the bad information. It's also about actively seeking out the good stuff, the resources and connections that can help you thrive in an urban environment.
Exactly. He argues that in an information-saturated world, being able to curate your own information flow is crucial for maintaining a clear mind and making informed decisions.
It makes you realize that prepping isn't just about physical stuff. It's about mental agility and digital literacy as well. It's about being able to navigate this complex information landscape we're all swimming in.
He sees it as a crucial skill for the modern urban prepper.
It's funny, we started this deep dive talking about the art of war, this ancient military treatise, and here we are talking about information warfare in the digital age. It seems like those timeless principles of strategy and adaptability really do apply to the modern world.
The Portuguese prepper makes a compelling case for that.
It's given me a lot to think about. It's not just about stockpiling supplies. It's about developing a resilient mindset, understanding your urban environment, building a strong community, and even mastering the art of invisibility. It's a holistic approach to preparedness, one that encompasses both the physical and the mental.
He doesn't offer easy answers, but he provides a framework for thinking about urban survival in a strategic and nuanced way. It's not about living in fear, it's about empowering yourself to face the future with confidence and resilience.
Well said. I think the Portuguese prepper would be proud of us. We've certainly embraced the spirit of his approach. We've challenged assumptions, explored unconventional ideas, and hopefully inspired our listeners to think about urban preparedness in a new light.
And remember, as the Portuguese prepper often says, chance favors the prepared mind.
So to all our urban explorers out there, stay curious, stay vigilant, and most importantly, stay prepared.